The Poisoned Inheritance. Chapter 1. The Last Breath. The silence in the hospital room was so thick it seemed to have weight. Esperanza Morales stood by the window, her worn hands clutching a dust cloth she'd forgotten she was holding. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, glittering towers against a darkening sky. Inside, a man was dying. Raphael Ashford lay in the hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arms, monitors beeping in a rhythm that seemed slower with each passing hour. Once, he'd commanded boardrooms and bent markets to his will. Now, at 73, cancer had stripped him down to bone and papery skin. His empire remained, but the emperor was fading. "Esperanza," he whispered, his voice like dry leaves. She turned quickly, nearly dropping the cloth. "Mr. Ashford? Do you need water? Should I call the nurse?" "Come here." It wasn't a request. Even dying, Raphael Ashford gave commands. She approached the bed, her rubber-soled shoes silent on the tile floor. 6 months she'd been cleaning this private suite at St. Catherine's Medical Center. 6 months of watching this once powerful man become smaller, frilier, more human. "Closer," he said. Esperanza leaned in. His breath smelled of medicine and something else, something final. "They're coming tomorrow," Raphael said. His pale blue eyes, still sharp despite everything, fixed on her face. "My sons, the lawyers, they think I don't know what they're planning." "Sir, you shouldn't stress yourself." "Don't." He raised one skeletal hand. "Don't treat me like I'm already gone. I need you to listen, Esperanza. Really listen." She nodded, feeling something shift in the air between them. This wasn't the usual small talk they'd shared over the past months. This was different. "You're the only one," Raphael continued, each word an effort. "The only one who didn't want something from me. Do you know how rare that is?" Esperanza felt her throat tighten. "I was just doing my job, Mr. Ashford." "No." A ghost of a smile crossed his thin lips. "You asked about my daughter, Elena. No one asks about Elena anymore. They all pretend she never existed because talking about her makes them uncomfortable. But you asked. You remembered her birthday. You brought flowers." It was true. Esperanza had noticed the photo on the nightstand. A beautiful young woman with dark hair and her father's eyes. When she'd asked about her, Raphael's whole face had changed. He talked for an hour about Elena, his voice stronger than she'd ever heard it. How she'd loved art and poetry. How she died at 22 in a car accident 15 years ago. How the light had gone out of his life that day. The next week, on what would have been Elena's birthday, Esperanza had brought white roses. She'd spent her lunch money on them. It had seemed important. "Mr. Ashford." "Raphael, please, I think we're past formalities." She swallowed. "Raphael, you should rest." "I'll rest soon enough." His hand found hers, cold and light as paper. "I've made a decision, Esperanza. One that will shock a lot of people. Maybe even you." "What do you mean?" He pulled a folded envelope from beneath his pillow. "How long had it been there?" "This is for you. But don't open it now. Wait until after the reading of the will." "Can you do that?" Esperanza stared at the cream-colored envelope, her name written in shaky handwriting across the front. "I don't understand." "You will." Raphael's grip tightened slightly. "Promise me something. When they come at you, and they will come at you, remember this, you earned it. Not by blood, not by name, but by being human when everyone else forgot how." "Mr. Ashford, you're scaring me." "Good." His eyes were fierce now, blazing with the remnants of the man he'd been. "You should be scared. What I'm giving you comes with a price. Everything does. But you're stronger than you think, Esperanza Morales. Stronger than my sons ever were." The monitor beside the bed began to beep more insistently. Raphael's breathing grew labored, his chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. "I'll get the doctor." Esperanza started to pull away. "Wait." His voice was fading. "One more thing. There's a video. The lawyers have it. Make sure they play it. All of it. Don't let them." "Cut it short." "Raphael, please." "The truth." His eyes were closing. Sometimes the truth is the only inheritance worth leaving. The machines screamed. Nurses rushed in. Esperanza was pushed aside, the envelope still clutched in her shaking hands. She watched as they tried to revive him, as doctors shouted orders, as the man who'd built an empire fought his last battle. And lost. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, Raphael Ashford died. The nurses recorded the time, made their notes, began the process of death that was so routine to them and so shattering to everyone else. Esperanza stood in the corner, silent tears streaming down her face. She was crying for a man she'd known for only 6 months. A man who'd probably spoken more words to her in that time than his own sons had heard in years. She looked down at the envelope in her hands. The paper was expensive, heavy. Inside, she could feel something more than just a letter. Something that felt like a key. Whatever Raphael Ashford had done, whatever he'd set in motion, it was too late to stop now. The inheritance was already poisoned. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The law offices of Morrison, Black & Associates occupied the 42nd floor of the Ashford Tower, a glass and steel monument to everything Raphael had built. Esperanza had never been this high up before. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city looked like a toy set, cars like ants, people invisible. She felt invisible too, sitting in the plush waiting area in her best dress. A simple navy blue she'd worn to her mother's funeral 3 years ago. She'd ironed it carefully that morning, her hands shaking. The envelope was in her purse, still unopened. Raphael's words echoed in her mind. Wait until after the reading of the will. Miss Morales? A young paralegal with a sharp suit and sharper eyes appeared. They're ready for you. Esperanza stood, smoothing her dress, and followed him down a corridor lined with portraits of distinguished lawyers. All men, all white, all looking stern and successful. The paralegal opened a heavy door, and she stepped into a conference room that seemed designed to intimidate. A massive oak table dominated the space. Around it sat Raphael's family, and the temperature in the room dropped the moment Esperanza entered. Michael Ashford, the eldest son, sat at the head of the table like he already owned it. 48 years old, with his father's height but none of his presence. He had the look of a man who'd inherited wealth without earning it. His suit probably cost more than Esperanza made in 3 months. This is a joke, Michael said flatly, not looking at her. Someone tell me this is a joke. Beside him, his younger brother Thomas shifted uncomfortably. At 43, Thomas had always been the softer one, the one who'd tried and failed to escape his father's shadow by becoming an artist. He'd failed at that too. His eyes flicked to Esperanza with something that might have been curiosity or might have been contempt. Across from them sat Vivian Ashford, Michael's wife, a woman whose face had been so extensively lifted and tucked that she seemed to exist in a permanent state of surprise. Her diamond necklace caught the light as she turned to whisper something to Catherine, Thomas's fiancée, a 26-year-old former model who'd been engaged to Thomas for 5 years with no wedding date in sight. At the far end of the table, looking distinctly uncomfortable, was Elena's mother, Sophia Ashford, Raphael's first wife. She was the only one who'd smiled at Esperanza when she entered. A sad, knowing smile that made Esperanza's chest ache. Please, sit down, Miss Morales. Attorney James Morrison gestured to an empty chair. He was 60, gray-haired, with the weary look of a man who'd seen every family drama play out in this very room. Esperanza sat, acutely aware of the expensive leather, the way the chair probably cost more than her monthly rent. Now that everyone is present, Morrison began, opening a leather folder. We can begin the reading of Raphael Ashford's last will and testament, dated September 15th of this year, witnessed and notarized according to. Skip the formalities, Morrison, Michael interrupted. Let's get to the point. Morrison's jaw tightened. Mr. Ashford was very specific about how this reading should proceed. There are unusual elements that require us to follow his instructions exactly. Unusual? Thomas leaned forward. What does that mean? It means, Morrison said carefully, that before we discuss the distribution of assets, Mr. Ashford left specific messages for each of you. And a video. A video? Vivian's eyebrows tried to rise further. They couldn't. Raphael hated being filmed. Nevertheless, Morrison nodded to his assistant, who dimmed the lights and activated a large screen on the wall. The screen flickered to life and there was Raphael. But not the dying man Esperanza had known these past months. This was Raphael from perhaps a year ago, still thin but not skeletal, still weak but not defeated. He sat in what looked like his study at home, surrounded by books and photographs. He looked directly at the camera, directly at them all, and began to speak. "If you're watching this," Raphael's recorded voice filled the room, "then I'm dead. Good. I was tired. But before I go, I have some things to say, and you're going to listen. All of you." Michael shifted in his seat. Thomas stared at the screen. Sophia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "Michael, my firstborn, the heir apparent." Raphael's face on the screen was hard. "You've been waiting for this day for 20 years. Waiting for me to die so you could finally take control of what I built. You think I didn't know? You think I didn't hear you, at my 60th birthday party, telling that investor that you'd modernize the company once the old man was gone?" Michael's face went white. Vivian's hand found his under the table. "You're good at numbers, Michael. Always have been. But you know what you're not good at? People. You fired 300 workers last year to boost your division's profits. 300 families lost their income right before Christmas. When I asked you about it, do you remember what you said? It's just business, Dad. Just business." On the screen, Raphael leaned forward. "Elena would have been ashamed of you. Your sister understood that business is always about people. You never learned that lesson." The room was silent except for Raphael's voice. "Thomas, my artist, my sensitive son." The tone softened slightly. "You've spent your entire adult life trying to prove you're not like me. How's that working out? Still living in the condo I bought you? Still driving the car I leased? Still taking the monthly allowance I set up? You want to be different, but you're too comfortable to actually do it." Thomas's hands were clenched on the table, knuckles white. "You could have been great," Raphael continued. "You have talent, real talent, but you were too afraid to fail on your own, so you never really tried. You just pretended to try while living off my money. Elena believed in you more than you believed in yourself. She would have pushed you. I should have pushed you. Instead, I enabled you. That's my failure, not yours. But it's your choice to keep accepting it." Catherine was staring at Thomas, seeing something in his face she'd never seen before. Raphael's image sat back. "Vivian, Catherine, I'm not going to waste time on you. You married money and you know it. At least be honest about it." Vivian gasped. Catherine looked at her lap. "Sophia." Raphael's voice changed completely, becoming gentle. "You're only here because I asked you to be. You've moved on, remarried, found happiness. I'm glad. You deserved better than what I gave you. When Elena died, I blamed you for living. That was unforgivable. You're a good woman, Sophia. You always were. Better than I deserved." Sophia was crying openly now. "Which brings me," Raphael said, his eyes seeming to look directly at Esperanza through the screen, "to Esperanza Morales." Every head in the room turned to her. Esperanza felt like she might be sick. "You're wondering who she is," Raphael continued. "Some of you are angry she's even in this room. Let me tell you about Esperanza. 6 months ago, she started cleaning my hospital room. Just another minimum wage worker, invisible to people like you. But she did something none of you did. She saw me. Not my money, not my company, not what I could give her. She saw a dying old man who was lonely." Esperanza's vision blurred with tears. "She asked about Elena. She brought flowers on Elena's birthday. She stayed late one night when I had a panic attack, held my hand, told me about her own mother's death, made me feel less alone. She did this for minimum wage and no hope of reward. She did it because she's a good person." Raphael's face hardened again. "Which is more than I can say for most of you." The screen went black for a moment. When it came back, Raphael was holding papers. "Here's what's going to happen. Michael, Thomas, you'll each receive $5 million. That's it. The houses, the cars, the country club memberships. All of that was mine, not yours. You have 1 year to find your own way. What? Michael shot to his feet. You can't be serious. Sit down, Mr. Ashford, Morrison said firmly. Let him finish. The Ashford Corporation, Raphael continued, will be restructured. 40% goes to the Elena Ashford Foundation, which will focus on scholarships for young artists and programs for underprivileged youth. I've appointed Sophia as the director. She'll do Elena's memory proud. Sophia nodded through her tears. 30% goes into trusts for my grandchildren, if Michael and Thomas ever have any, which, given their track records, seems unlikely. But hope springs eternal. And the remaining 30%, Raphael paused, his eyes burning through the screen, along with my personal estate, including the house, the art collection, the cars, and approximately $87 million in various accounts and investments. The room held its breath. Goes to Esperanza Morales. Silence. Then chaos. Michael was shouting. Vivian was screaming. Thomas sat frozen. Catherine had backed away from the table. Sophia was trying to say something, but no one could hear her. Esperanza couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The words made no sense. $87 million. The house. The art collection. No, that was impossible. People like her didn't get things like that. There had to be a mistake. Shut up. Morrison's voice cut through the noise. Everyone sit down and be quiet, or I will clear this room and finish the reading in individual sessions. Slowly, reluctantly, they sat. Michael's face was purple with rage. Vivian looked like she might faint. Thomas just looked stunned. There's more, Morrison said, and played the rest of the video. Raphael's voice was tired now. I know what you're thinking. All of you. This is insane. She manipulated me. She took advantage of a dying man. Well, let me be very clear. Esperanza Morales had no idea I was doing this. She never asked for anything. Never suggested anything. This is my choice, my decision, and if you contest it, you'll lose. I've had 4 different psychiatrists examine me. All of them certified I was of sound mind. I've had 3 separate law firms review the documents. Everything is legal, binding, and unbreakable. You can sue. You'll lose. You can try to prove undue influence. You won't find any. I did this because I wanted to, because someone finally deserved it, and because maybe, just maybe, it will teach you something about the value of human decency. Raphael leaned close to the camera one final time. Esperanza, if you're watching this, I'm sorry for what I'm about to put you through, but you're strong enough, and you're worth it. Don't let them tell you otherwise. And remember what I said. There's a price for everything. This comes with conditions. Morrison has the details. Trust him. Trust yourself. And forgive an old man for being sentimental. The screen went black. Morrison cleared his throat. There is, as Mr. Ashford mentioned, one condition. Miss Morales must live in the Ashford estate for 1 full year. She must attend board meetings for the company. She must actively participate in the Elena Ashford Foundation. If she abandons these responsibilities or tries to sell the assets before the year is complete, everything reverts to the estate and will be distributed to charity. He looked at Esperanza. Do you accept these terms? Every eye in the room was on her. Michael looked murderous. Thomas looked lost. Sophia looked hopeful. Esperanza felt the weight of the envelope in her purse, still unopened. She thought of Raphael, dying and alone except for her. She thought of Elena, the daughter who'd been loved and lost. She thought of her own mother, who'd cleaned houses her whole life and died with nothing. She thought about the price of everything. Her voice came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. I accept. Michael slammed his fist on the table. This isn't over. I'll fight this. I'll prove she manipulated him. You'll lose, Morrison interrupted. Your father made sure of that. However, he did include one additional stipulation that might interest you. What? Michael growled. Miss Morales has the option, at any point during the year, to share her inheritance with the family. 50-50 split. She can choose to do this at any time for any reason or not at all. The decision is entirely hers. Everyone looked at Esperanza again. She saw the calculation in their eyes, the hope, the manipulation already beginning. "Miss Morales," Morrison said gently, "do you need time to think about?" "No." Esperanza stood on shaking legs. "I need to go. I need air. I can't. I need to leave." She grabbed her purse and walked to the door, ignoring the voices calling after her, ignoring the questions and demands and threats. She made it to the elevator, pressed the button, waited an eternity for the doors to open. As they closed, she caught one last glimpse of the conference room. Michael was on his phone, probably calling lawyers. Thomas had his head in his hands. Sophia was watching Esperanza with an expression that looked like pride. The elevator descended. 42 floors of glass and steel and money and power. Esperanza's reflection stared back at her from the polished walls. She looked the same. How could she look the same when everything had just changed? At the ground floor, she walked out into the afternoon sunshine. The city moved around her, people rushing to meetings and appointments, living their normal lives. She found a bench in a small plaza and sat down heavily. Her hands shaking, she took out the envelope. It was time. Inside, along with a letter, was a key. Old, brass with an ornate handle. The letter was short, written in Raphael's shaky handwriting. "Esperanza, this key opens the safe in my study. Inside, you'll find documents that explain everything. Documents my sons can never see. The truth about Elena's death. The truth about what I did. The truth about why I chose you. You're the only one I trust with this. You're the only one who cared enough to know who Elena really was. The inheritance comes with this burden. You must decide what to do with the truth. Keep it hidden, and my sons remain innocent of what really happened. Reveal it, and justice will finally be served, but innocent people will be hurt. I'm sorry to leave. I'm sorry to leave you with this choice, but I believe you'll make the right one. Whatever that is. You earned this inheritance, Esperanza. Not by blood, but by being the daughter I needed when I'd lost the one I loved. Forgive me. R. Esperanza read the letter 3 times. Then she looked at the key in her palm, warm from being clutched so tightly. The truth about Elena's death. What truth? Everyone said it was an accident. A rainy night, a sharp curve, a car going too fast. Tragic and simple. But Raphael had said there was more. Something he'd hidden. Something his sons didn't know. She stood, placing the letter and key carefully back in her purse. She had a year to live in that house. A year to decide what to do with the truth. A year to survive whatever poison came with this inheritance. Behind her, she didn't see Michael Ashford exit the building. Phone pressed to his ear, his eyes scanning the plaza until they locked on her. She didn't hear him say, "I found her. Yes, follow her. I want to know everything. Where she goes, who she talks to, what she does. Everything." She didn't see the man in the gray suit who began walking 20 feet behind her as she left the plaza. The inheritance was hers now, but the war had just begun. Chapter 3. The House of Secrets. The Ashford estate sat on 5 acres in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, where old money whispered behind gates and hedges. Esperanza had seen it only in photographs, never imagining she'd walk through its doors as anything other than hired help. Now she stood at the entrance, the brass key heavy in her hand. Not the one from the letter, but the house key Morrison had given her before she left his office. The estate was quiet in the late afternoon light, the stone facade seeming to absorb the golden rays rather than reflect them. "Are you going in? Or planning to stand there all day?" Esperanza jumped, turning to find Sophia Ashford emerging from a Mercedes parked in the circular driveway. The older woman wore a simple linen dress and carried a wicker basket. "Mrs. Ashford, I didn't see you. Please." "Sophia." She walked up the steps, her heels clicking on stone. "And I'm sorry for startling you. Morrison called to let me know you'd be coming here today. I thought you might appreciate a friendly face." "I." Esperanza looked back at the door. "I'm not sure I should be here. This feels wrong." "Why?" "Raphael left it to you. That makes it yours. But your sons are adults who need to learn that money doesn't fall from the sky. Sophia's voice was firm but not unkind. Come on, let's go inside. I brought some things to help you settle in. She unlocked the door. Of course she still had a key, and led Esperanza into an entrance hall that took her breath away. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, a chandelier that looked like frozen diamonds. Everything gleamed, perfect and cold. I know it's overwhelming, Sophia said, setting her basket on a side table. I felt the same way when Raphael first brought me here 30 years ago. I was a middle school teacher from Brooklyn. This place felt like a museum. How did you? Esperanza stopped, unsure how to phrase the question. How did I survive it? Sophia smiled sadly. I didn't. Not really. The house was beautiful, but it was never a home. Raphael was always working. When Elena was born, things got better for a while. She filled these empty rooms with laughter. But after the divorce, after I left, she trailed off looking around. The house went back to being a mausoleum. They walked through rooms that seemed designed to impress rather than comfort. A formal living room where the furniture looked like it had never been sat on. A dining room with a table that could seat 20. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a rolling ladder. His study is upstairs, Sophia said, watching Esperanza's face. That's where he spent most of his time. That's where. Where what? Where he kept Elena's things after she died. Michael and Thomas wanted to pack everything away, donate it, move on. Raphael refused. He made a shrine. They climbed the stairs. The second floor was quieter, more personal. Sophia led her down a hallway lined with photographs. Raphael as a young man, shaking hands with presidents and celebrities. Raphael and Sophia on their wedding day, both so young. And Elena. Elena as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, as the beautiful young woman she'd become. Sophia stopped at one photo. This was taken 2 weeks before she died. She'd just gotten accepted to art school in Paris. Raphael was against it. He wanted her to study business. They had a terrible fight about it. She left angry. When she died, Sophia's voice broke. When she died, they hadn't spoken in 3 days. He never forgave himself. I'm sorry, Esperanza whispered. Don't be. Just understand what you've inherited. It's not just money and property. It's grief. It's regret. It's all the things Raphael couldn't say while he was alive. She opened a door at the end of the hall. This is the study. The room was smaller than Esperanza expected, more intimate. A large desk dominated the space, covered with papers and books. The walls were lined with more photographs, more memories of Elena. And in the corner, a glass case displaying her artwork, watercolors and sketches, all signed with a flowing A. She was talented, Esperanza said, moving closer to examine a painting of a sunset over water. She was brilliant. Sophia touched the glass gently. Not just at art, at everything. She had her father's intelligence and, I'd like to think, my heart. She wanted to change the world. Raphael never understood that you don't change the world by making money. You change it by making meaning. Esperanza looked at the desk. Somewhere in this room was the safe. Somewhere was the truth Raphael had hidden. Sophia, she said carefully, what really happened the night Elena died? The older woman went very still. What do you mean? Raphael said, in the letter he left me, he said there was more to it, that his sons don't know the truth. Sophia turned to face her, and Esperanza saw something in her eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. Did Raphael tell you where to find this truth? He mentioned a safe. Then you need to decide right now if you really want to know. Sophia's voice was urgent. Some secrets stay buried for good reasons, Esperanza. Some truths destroy more than they reveal. But if there's something wrong, something that needs to be made right, at what cost? Sophia grabbed her arms. Listen to me. I loved Elena more than my own life. I would do anything, anything to have her back. But she's gone. And the truth about how she died, it won't bring her back. It will only hurt people who are still here. You know, Esperanza breathed. You know what happened. Sophia released her and stepped back. I know what Raphael told me, yes, years later, when the guilt was eating him alive. And I've had to live with that knowledge ever since. Tell me. No. Sophia shook her head. If Raphael wanted you to know, he left it for you to find. But before you go looking, ask yourself, are you ready for this? Are you ready to hold someone's fate in your hands? She walked to the door, then paused. There's food in the kitchen. I stocked the refrigerator this morning. Fresh sheets on the master bed, though you can choose any room you like. The staff will arrive tomorrow. Raphael kept them on salary even after he went to the hospital. They're good people. Loyal. Sophia, wait. One more thing. She looked back. Michael will come. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. He'll try to charm you, threaten you, bribe you. Don't trust him. Thomas is weak, but he's not cruel. He might actually surprise you. But Michael. Her face darkened. Michael is his father's son in all the worst ways. Be careful. Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the stairs, the front door closing with a heavy thud that left Esperanza alone in the house of secrets. She turned back to the study. The afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows across the floor. Somewhere in this room was the safe. Somewhere was the truth that had haunted Raphael until his dying day. The key in her purse seemed to burn with its own heat. Not yet, she told herself. First, I need to understand this place. Understand what I've inherited. She spent the next hour exploring, opening doors, learning the geography of her new prison. Because that's what it felt like. A beautiful, expensive prison. 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a wine cellar, a home gym, a theater room. Every luxury imaginable and all of it empty. The master bedroom was the hardest to enter. This had been Raphael's room, his sanctuary. The bed was made with military precision, the surfaces dust-free. Someone had been maintaining it. The staff probably waiting for their employer to return. He never would. Esperanza sat on the edge of the bed, testing its firmness. Too soft. She'd always slept on firm mattresses, cheap ones from discount stores. This felt like sinking into a cloud. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the Ashford building. Come alone. Michael. No, please. No request. Just a command. She deleted the message without responding. Another buzz. A different number. I'm sorry about earlier. This is hard for everyone. Can we meet? Just to talk? Thomas. At least he was polite. But Sophia's warning rang in her ears. Don't trust them. She put the phone on silent and went back downstairs. The kitchen was massive, industrial-grade appliances that looked like they'd never been used. The refrigerator was indeed stocked. Sophia had left enough food for a week. Fresh fruits, vegetables, chicken, fish. A container of homemade soup. A note was attached. You need to eat. You're too thin. Despite everything, Esperanza smiled. She heated the soup, poured it into a bowl, and sat at the kitchen island. The marble was cold under her elbows. The house was silent except for the hum of appliances and the distant tick of a clock somewhere. This was her life now. This silence. This space. This burden. She thought of her apartment across town. A studio in a building where the heat only worked half the time and the neighbors fought loud enough to hear through thin walls. She thought of her job at the hospital, minimum wage and maximum effort, cleaning rooms and emptying trash and being invisible. She'd been happy there. Poor, exhausted, worried about making rent, but happy. She'd known who she was. Who was she now? The heiress? The cleaning lady who got lucky? The pawn in a dead man's game? She finished the soup and washed the bowl carefully, drying it and putting it away. Old habits. Even in a mansion with a dishwasher that probably cost more than her old car, she washed dishes by hand. Night had fallen completely. The house seemed larger in the dark, full of shadows and echoes. Esperanza walked back upstairs, past all the photographs of Elena, back to the study. The key was in her hand before she consciously decided to take it out. The safe. Where was it? She searched the obvious places first. Behind paintings, nothing. Under the desk, nothing. She pulled books from the shelves, looking for a hidden panel. Nothing. Frustrated, she sat in Raphael's chair. It creaked under her weight, old leather soft and worn in places where he'd sat for years. From this vantage point, she could see Elena's artwork, her smiling face in a dozen photographs. What happened to you? Esperanza thought. What did your father do? Her eyes fell on the painting she'd admired earlier, the sunset over water. Something about it seemed different now in the lamplight. The frame was slightly askew. She stood and approached it. Up close, she could see Elena's signature, the date, June 2008, 3 months before she died. Esperanza lifted the painting carefully from the wall. Behind it was the safe. Small, black, with a keyhole that looked original to the house. The key in her hand fit perfectly. She stood there, frozen. Once she opened this, there was no going back. Whatever was inside, whatever truth Raphael had hidden, it would become her responsibility. Sophia's words echoed. Some secrets stay buried for good reasons. But another voice, softer, spoke too. Raphael's voice from the hospital. Sometimes the truth is the only inheritance worth leaving. Esperanza turned the key. The lock clicked. The safe door swung open. Inside were 3 things: a leather journal worn and thick with entries, a manila folder bulging with documents, a small metal box, locked with a combination she didn't know. She took out the journal first, carrying it to the desk. The leather was soft with age, the pages filled with Raphael's handwriting. Stronger here than in the letter he'd left her, written when he was still healthy. She opened to the first page. March 15th, 2008. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Good. Maybe death will finally give me some peace from what I've done. This journal is a confession, a record of my greatest failure. The truth about Elena's death that I've hidden from everyone, including myself, for too long. I need to write it down before the cancer takes my mind along with my body. I need someone to know, even if that someone is just the pages of this book. Esperanza's hands trembled as she turned the page. Elena didn't die in an accident. Not really. Oh, the car crash was real enough. The rain, the curve, the tree she hit at 60 miles an hour. All of that happened. But the reason she was driving that night, the reason she was going so fast, the reason she wasn't paying attention, that's where the truth lives. The words blurred. Esperanza blinked hard, focusing. She was running away from me, from my house, from a fight we'd had, the worst fight. She wanted to go to Paris for art school. I told her no. I told her art was a hobby, not a career. I told her she was throwing away her future. She screamed that I was trying to control her life like I controlled everything else. She said I'd turned into a tyrant who measured everything by money and power. She wasn't wrong, but that's not what killed her. What killed her was what I said next. In my anger, in my pride, I told her that if she left for Paris, she was dead to me. Cut off completely. No money, no support, no family. Choose art over the family business, and she'd be choosing to be alone. She looked at me with such hatred, such disappointment. She said, "You're not my father anymore. You're just a man who builds things and destroys people." Then she ran, took her car keys and ran. It was pouring rain. I should have stopped her. I should have run after her. But my pride, my damned pride wouldn't let me. I let her drive away angry, in a storm, emotionally devastated. 20 minutes later, the police called. Esperanza had to stop reading. Her vision was swimming with tears. She could see it so clearly. The young woman, heartbroken and furious, driving too fast through rain-slicked streets, her mind on her father's rejection rather than the road ahead. But even that isn't the worst part. Raphael's handwriting continued on the next page, shakier now, as if the memory itself made his hand unsteady. The worst part is what happened after. Michael was 25 then, already working in the company. He came to me 3 days after the funeral. I was in this study, drunk, surrounded by Elena's artwork. He sat down and said, "Dad, I know this is hard, but we need to talk about the company." The company. His sister was dead, and he wanted to talk about business. He explained that Elena's death, tragic as it was, had simplified things. There was no longer any question about succession. No more uncertainty about the future leadership. The company would stay in the family, pass cleanly from father to son. He actually used the word cleanly. I should have thrown him out. Should have disowned him right there. Instead, I did something worse. I nodded. I agreed. I let Elena's death become convenient. Esperanza felt sick. She set the journal down and stood, pacing the room. This was what Raphael had carried for 15 years. This crushing guilt, this knowledge that his pride had killed his daughter and his cowardice had let it be erased. She returned to the desk and kept reading. That's why I'm leaving everything to someone outside the family. Because Michael and Thomas don't deserve it. They never mourned Elena. They mourned the disruption her death caused. The awkward public sympathy, the temporary halt in business operations, the uncomfortable questions. But you, whoever you are reading this, you must have cared. Why else would I have trusted you with this? You must have asked about her. Must have seen her as more than just a dead girl in a photograph. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting her be real. Now the choice is yours. In the manila folder are documents. Text messages between Michael and Thomas from the weeks after Elena's death. Private emails. Conversations I wasn't supposed to see but that my lawyers uncovered when I asked them to investigate. What you'll find will disgust you, but it will also answer questions about whether my sons deserve their inheritance. Do with this information what you will. Justice? Mercy? Silence? I can't tell you what's right. I couldn't figure it out in 15 years. But I believe you'll choose better than I did. The small box contains something else. Something more dangerous. The combination is Elena's birthday, 0422. Inside is evidence of something I did, something terrible, in the aftermath of her death. Something only Sophia knows about. If you open that box, you'll understand why she's afraid. You'll understand the real price of this inheritance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to face this while I was alive. I'm sorry I'm making it your burden. But I trust you. You're the first person I've trusted in 15 years. Raphael Ashford. The journal ended there. Esperanza sat in silence, staring at the words, feeling the weight of them settle onto her shoulders like a physical thing. She looked at the manila folder, at the small metal box. 2 more secrets, 2 more truths. Her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. It was a photo message from another unknown number. No text, just an image. It showed her apartment building. Her window, taken from street level, looking up. A second message arrived. Nice place. Be a shame if something happened to it. Or to you. Give back what doesn't belong to you. Esperanza's blood ran cold. She stood, walked to the study window, and looked out at the dark grounds. Was someone out there? Watching. She pulled the curtains closed, heart hammering. Her phone rang. Not a text this time, a call. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, digitally distorted. You have something that belongs to the Ashford family. Return it or there will be consequences. Who is this? You have 48 hours. Announce you're sharing the inheritance. 50-50 like Morrison said. Or things get unpleasant. Is this Michael? Because threatening me isn't. This isn't a threat. It's a fact. People like you don't belong in houses like that. You don't understand how things work in this world. But you'll learn. 48 hours. The line went dead. Esperanza stood frozen, phone in hand, alone in the enormous house. She'd been naive to think this would be simple, that she could just accept the inheritance and move on with her life. Raphael had known. That's why he'd warned her. That's why he'd left the secrets. She looked at the folder, at the box. If Michael was threatening her now, before she'd even spent one night in this house, what would he do when she found out what was in those documents? When she learned what Raphael had hidden? 48 hours, the voice had said. Esperanza sat back down at the desk. She opened the manila folder. Inside were printouts of text messages, emails, financial documents. She started reading. Text exchange between Michael and Thomas Ashford. October 2009. Michael, finally. Dad's backing off the expansion plans. Elena's death hit him hard. Thomas. That's not something to celebrate, Mike. Michael. I'm not celebrating. But facts are facts. He's not thinking clearly. Haven't seen him this vulnerable since Mom left. Good time to push through some changes. Thomas. Jesus. Michael. Michael, what? I'm being practical. We'll mourn appropriately, then move forward. That's what Dad would want. What Elena would want. Thomas. You didn't even like Elena. Michael. That's not true. I loved my sister. But life goes on. Business goes on. Esperanza felt her stomach turn. She kept reading. Email from Michael Ashford to Thomas Ashford. November 2009. Tom, Dad's getting worse. Saw him talking to Elena's portrait yesterday like she could hear him. Sophia thinks he needs therapy. I think he needs a purpose. I'm proposing we move up the timeline on the Singapore expansion. Give him something to focus on besides grief. Get him back to work. The longer he sits in that house alone, the more unstable he becomes. Also, we should discuss the trust fund. Elena's portion reverts to the estate now. That's an extra $45 million we could leverage. Just saying. Thomas's response. Michael, this is too soon. It's been 6 weeks. Give him time. And the trust fund? Really? That's Elena's money. It should go to a charity in her name or something. Michael's reply. Charity? We are a charity. To every employee, every shareholder, every client who depends on us. That money keeps the company strong. Elena would understand that. Stop being emotional and start being strategic. That's what leaders do. There were dozens more. Months of correspondence showing Michael systematically taking advantage of his father's grief, pushing through deals Raphael would normally have vetoed, making decisions that benefited Michael's division at the company's expense. And Thomas, weak Thomas, objecting in emails but never in person. Never standing up to his brother. A financial document showed Michael had given himself a $2 million bonus 6 months after Elena died. Approved during a board meeting Raphael hadn't attended. Esperanza felt rage building in her chest. These men, these entitled, cold men, had used their sister's death as an opportunity. Had watched their father break and seen only advantage. Raphael had been right. They didn't deserve his money. They didn't deserve anything. She looked at the small metal box. The combination lock glinted in the lamplight. Elena's birthday, 0422, April 22nd. Esperanza's fingers moved to the lock. 4 rotations. 2, 2, 2. The box clicked open. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note on Raphael's prescription pad. Video footage from Elena's car. I paid the police chief $100,000 to keep this out of the official report. Only 3 people have seen it. Me, the chief, now retired and moved to Florida, and Sophia. I couldn't keep it from her. Watch it if you dare. But once you do, you can't unsee it. The truth is sometimes worse than the lie. Esperanza held the USB drive like it might explode. She looked at Raphael's computer on the desk. Still plugged in, probably still functional. Did she want to know? Did she need to? A sound from downstairs made her freeze. A door closing. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. She quickly put everything back in the safe except the USB drive, which she slipped into her pocket. She turned off the desk lamp and moved to the study door, listening. The footsteps were coming up the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. Miss Morales? A male voice. Unfamiliar. Miss Morales, I'm Robert Chin. I'm the house manager. Sophia called and said you'd be here tonight. I apologize for the late hour. I thought I'd check in. Make sure everything was all right. Esperanza relaxed slightly but kept her guard up. She opened the study door. At the top of the stairs stood an Asian man in his 50s, wearing a cardigan and glasses, holding a flashlight. He looked more like a librarian than a threat. I'm sorry if I frightened you, he said. I should have called first. I've been managing this house for 20 years. Mr. Ashford gave me a key for emergencies. It's fine. Esperanza stepped into the hallway. I'm just jumpy. It's been a long day. I can imagine. Robert's face was kind. This must all be very overwhelming. I wanted you to know that the staff, myself, the gardener Maria, the cook Patricia, we're all here to help. Mr. Ashford was a good employer. Fair. Generous. We were sorry to hear he'd passed. Did you know Elena? The question came out before Esperanza could stop it. Robert's expression softened. I did. I started working here when she was 7 years old. Watched her grow up. She was special. When she died, something in this house died too. Mr. Ashford was never the same. What was she like? Bright, funny, stubborn like her father but kind like her mother. She used to paint in the garden. There's a studio out back. After the accident, Mr. Ashford locked it up. Couldn't bear to go in there. He paused. Why do you ask? Because everyone talks about her money or her death, but no one talks about her life. Feels wrong. Robert smiled. You're going to do fine here, Miss Morales. Mr. Ashford chose well. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. There was a car parked down the street when I arrived. Dark sedan, tinted windows. It drove away when I pulled into the driveway. Could be nothing, but be careful. Mr. Michael was always ambitious. His father's death and your inheritance. That's a lot of ambition left disappointed. After Robert left, Esperanza checked all the doors and windows. Everything was locked, but she didn't feel safe. The house was too big, too full of shadows and secrets. She went to the master bedroom, locked the door, and pushed a chair under the handle for good measure. Then she took out the USB drive. Her laptop, her old, cheap laptop from her studio apartment, was in her bag. She'd grabbed it that morning without knowing why. Now she was glad. She plugged in the drive. One file. Video_Elena_092309.mp4. Her cursor hovered over it. Once she clicked, there was no going back. 48 hours, the voice had said. But what if the truth on this drive changed everything? What if it gave her power or understanding or proof of something that could protect her? Esperanza clicked. The video player opened. The footage was dark, grainy, shot from a dashboard camera. Rain streaked the windshield. The wipers moved frantically. Elena's hands on the steering wheel, knuckles white. Audio, her sobbing, gasping for breath between sobs. I'm sorry, she was saying. I'm so sorry, Daddy. Please, please don't hate me. She was trying to call someone. The phone kept slipping from her wet hands. Tears and rain and heartbreak. The road curved ahead. She was going too fast. Daddy, please pick up. Please. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want. Just please. The tree appeared in the headlights. She saw it. Her eyes went wide. She screamed. She tried to brake, to swerve, but it was too late, too fast, too wet. The impact was sickening. The video went black. Then audio only. Elena's voice, broken, fading. Tell Daddy I love him. Tell him I'm. Silence. Esperanza was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She watched it again and again. Each time the horror was fresh. Elena had been trying to call her father when she crashed. Had been apologizing. Had been trying to make things right. Raphael knew this. Had seen this footage. Had known his daughter's last words were an apology to him. Had hidden it because the truth was unbearable. She had died loving him, trying to reach him, and he'd let Michael dismiss her death as convenient. Now Esperanza understood. This was the poison in the inheritance. Not the money, not the responsibility, but the knowledge. The crushing weight of knowing what had really happened and what had been done about it. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Your time is running out. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., come to the Ashford building. Top floor. Come alone or we involve the police. Fraud, undue influence, elder abuse, we can make charges stick. Choose wisely. Esperanza looked at her laptop screen, frozen on the last frame of Elena's face before the crash. She thought about Michael's texts, his coldness, his calculation. She thought about Raphael's guilt, his cowardice, his final attempt at redemption. She thought about the choice: share the inheritance and buy peace, or keep it and fight for justice. But whose justice? Elena's? Raphael's? Her own? The poisoned inheritance sat heavy on her shoulders, and she had 48 hours to decide what to do with it. Outside, in the darkness, the car with tinted windows returned to its spot down the street. And in that car, Michael Ashford watched the lights in the master bedroom, planning his next move. The war wasn't just beginning, it was about to explode. To be continued.